Alright, welcome back. Sorry, the last video was getting too long, and this is because I really want people to understand, the basic of these things before we go to more advanced things. So next thing is that we want to write a function that will help us to confirm if the inputs, if when somebody enters any value here, alright, if it is an email address. When somebody enters any value, if it is an email address, it should suggest the email address for us. If it is not a valid email address, it should run an error. There should be an error. So because we don't want people to be submitting things to your form without a legitimate email address. So we're going to say function validate email, call it validate email, into inputs. Those are the very required message, then invalid message. So we're going to first of all check if as value. We're going to use that as value. So we're going to put an exclamation mark before it if it does not have value. That means if the input does not have value, input, comma, require message. So this is the message. That's it. So if this exclamation mark signifies opposite, that's if it is not, if it does not have a value. So what we'll do now is that we're going to return false. So if we check the input for email and there is no value there, so automatically we'll return false message. All right. So then if that's the case, if somebody entered the value, then we need to validate. We need to just validate email. So I'm going to be validating the email. So constant, go to create constant email, call it email registration expression, email rejects equals to. So you will go to this website emailrejects.com. So I'm going to copy this code. This is the code that we use to check if the email, that if the value somebody is entering is correct. So we call it regular expression. That's the meaning of rejects. Regular expression, that's email regular expression. So for JavaScript is this, for Python is this. So if you are writing Python, you use this code. If you are writing JavaScript, you use this code. If you are using HTML, as you can see, we already put input type email, so automatically it works. All right, but in case you want to check, because not every browser will be able to know that the input is email. So this is for PHP. So for all programming languages, the regex, the regular expression for email can be found at emailrejects.com. So I will go back to my code. I've copied it. Constant email rejects. I'll put it inside this. I'll paste. All right. So it's showing some error. So I'm going to put this inside. I already told you where to get this button from. It's ahead of your tab. So it helps me manage the error. This button, this particular sign, is ahead of your tab, whether you are using a Mac or a Windows machine. So that's that. Then here, the next thing we are going to do is, if we want to check email regex, the same thing. If it is not email regex dot text, so we want to test it. Then email. That means if the format the person is entering does not go with this format, then we've not even the constant email. We want to fetch the email now, equals to inputs dot value. This is what will help us to get the value of the email dot trim. Trimming means it helps us to remove any space before or after. So that's what dot trim does. So this helps us to get the value of the email the person is entering. So we now want to say email reg dot text. We want to test if this email that the person have entered is in this format. That's what this line of code is doing for us. That means if it is not, this exclamation mark means opposite. If it is not, if the email the person have entered is not the same in terms of how the regular email expression should look like, which is supposed to have at. So it's going to return show error. We're also going to call the show error message. Show error. This show error message function, we're going to call it. This is it. Show error. So the input and the message. So I'm going to write input, because it is taking two values this time around. Because if it is not, that means is an error message is going to throw. So that's this invalid message. Invalid message. All right. So after that, we'll return true. So every function is expected to return a value, either a boolean or any other type of value. So then after that, we move down and complete the event handler that helps us to submit the form. So we're going to pick the form now and say what's the idea of the form, self, or have we picked it? Okay. All right. Here, so constant form is get element by ID. All right. Sign up, or we can just say, since we have what's the title of the form, ID sign up, so we can use the query selector. So that's another method. So we can just say constant form. We cannot use constant again form because we already declare a constant for form here. So it might be it might be a bad way. So if you are using the constant to declare a variable, you cannot use this word form again for a new variable. It's going to throw an error. So I don't want to let me allow the error to be thrown, equals to document dot query selector. So let me use query selector. Then if I'm using query selector, I'm going to indicate hash sign. Hash is the ID. So sign underscore up. Sign underscore up. That's the. Then next. Okay, sorry. So next thing we'll move to so constants. We want to set the messages. Constant name underscore required. So enter your full name. So the next one is constant email required. That means this, first of all, if the email space is empty, So it's going to be enter your email. Then the last one, constant email valid if the email is valid, or email invalid if the email is invalid. So what do we see? Enter a valid email. So that's it. So we are not going to add an events listener to this form. So we're going to say form add events listener. This time around is submit. We're going to be adding submit button. So it's going to listen to when you click the submit on the button. So it's going to take a callback function. That's event. Right, events. So first thing is that we want to prevent the form to submit. So this event default means do not submit the form, so it should prevent the default submission. Okay, so but we're now going to say let name valid. We want to check for valid name. Valid equals to as value. So we want to check if the name section has value. And don't forget, as value is taking the inputs and message. Alright, so the inputs here, the input for name, this is the input, this is the input. So we are going to get it from this particular form. So I hope this is not going to be confusing. Please, you have to rewatch this video over and over again so that you'll be able to understand it in details. So as value, so what I'm saying is that as value, this function as value is taking two parameters, the input and the message you want to pass. We want to check if the input is having value, is having a value. So the input here is the input for name. How do we access to the input for name? I've already told us in the first video when I was saying name, form, element, name. This is how we see the input. So we're now going to say as value, so form dot element into name. That's it. So we want to check if it's having value. So in this case, we now want to check name required. We are going to call the name required as the second parameter. This name required, enter your full name. All right. So then I'm going to now say let email, the same thing. We want to check for email valid. We want to check if the email has value inside. Email valid. We want to also say as value. So we want to check if it's having value. As value, in this case, form dot element into email. So the same thing we are going to put okay. So okay, so we are not going to use as value, we are going to use validate email, because the validate email function helps us to first of all check if it's having value, and if the value is also the email format that we requested. So we can, because it's checking two things, this function already helps us to combine that. So we're going to use here, the function is doing validate email, validate email. So it's taking two parameters. First, inputs, which is the form element email, comma, required message, that is email required required. I didn't spell it very well, I put it, so that's what must be here. So you require, email require. Then lastly, we are going to be checking for email invalid. So that is if it is an invalid email. So this is the message. This is the message that will pass to check for a required email. If it's empty, if the person did not put anything there, if you did not put anything here, this is the message that will be picked and displayed. But if you put something but that thing is not valid, if you put an email but the email is not valid, then email invalid message is what we will send. So then if we now check if both of them, if name valid, that means if both of them return true value, and if both of them are true, when we use and, that's if this valid and email valid, if they are true, that means if there is no problem, if the functions, this as value, if it returns true, and if this validate email also return true, that means that everything works fine. So email valid, email valid. I hope you understand. So if both of them are working, so we'll just run an alert message and said, okay, form working where this is a demo, right? So form working where this is a demo. So hopefully everything works. So we'll come here, we refresh, occurred error. Yes, identifier form has already been declared. This is where the error is coming from. This form, identifier form, has already been declared. So when you are using constant to declare a variable, all right, when you're using constant, you cannot declare such a variable twice. Constant means you can never change it. Here you are trying to change the value of form to a different value. So if I use let a now, it will not throw the error. Let me see, will it throw the error? I think it will still throw. Yeah, so we cannot use this word form again. If I ever use var, it will still throw the error. Yes, because the word form cannot be used again. So the best option for me now is to just go and comment out the form, the first one. Yep, and save it. So if I save now, let me click line 52. I think I'm trying to access form somewhere. Line 52. All right, so I have to comment out all of this because I'm trying to access the form, a form that was not declared. Yep, so I've commented all of them out. So everything should work now. Yes, so if I click submit, as you can see, the moment I click submit, it is saying enter full name, enter your email. But if I type something here now, for instance, I click submit, success, that means there is no problem, but the email is still empty. But if I enter anything email that is not officially email, if I click submit, oh, there's an error. Email reg.test is not a function. Just a minute, let me check that. So email reg.test, email regular expression dot test email coming. Let me check. All right, so I found out what the error is. Okay, so why this is not working. So if I put this, it's supposed to say, this is supposed to tell me that this email is not the right email if I click submit. So it's supposed to say is giving us the value success for both. All right, and this is not a right email. and here he said this text is not a function. So I've discovered what the problem is. So line 107, this is this constant email regular expression. So I'm going to remove this sign and click enter and push it to the next line and remove the one behind it. Exactly. So just write constant email regular expression equals to, then enter and paste this particular line. And I told you where to copy that from. Just go to emailregex.com. So just copy that of JavaScript. This is it, JavaScript. That's how to check. This is for HTML. Alright, so this way everything will work well. So if I refresh again, I come here to type something and I type something here and I click submit, it will throw error. It said enter a valid email because this is not valid. So if I now put at kkk.com and I click submit, form working well. This is a demo. So that is how to use JavaScript to check to validate a form, to make sure somebody is not sending an empty form to your database, so it will not submit. So next we need to do is to go to radio buttons and check buttons, because that is another part of form validation that we use email for. So I really want you to take your time to look at this very well, this particular section. So we are still looking at how we use JavaScript to process form. And the reason I'm taking my time with this section of the course is because this is what you are going to be doing most of the time. As a front-end developer, you are going to be processing forms most of the time because people will be interacting with any application we are building. And the only means of interaction is via forms. So some of them, it doesn't look like a form from outside, but in the real sense of it, they are all forms, because whatever requires that a user type in something in an application, all right, what the person is doing is accessing, interacting with your form. So I'm going to create another document. I'm going to call it new file. I don't want to add to this sign up form so that you don't mix it up, because this one might be a bit complex for you. You might want to take your time to look over it. Then there's even a way I can even make this, that can even put all of this code inside this particular event listener, so that it doesn't look complex. But if I have time, I will come back to it. But let's go to dom6.html. all right, so I'm coming here, HTML5. So we want to process JavaScript form with how do we process CHECKBOX? So CHECKBOX is when you are filling a website. They said select the foods you like, and there are different CHECKBOX: rice, beans, whatever, jam. So you are just checking. Maybe sometimes you check 2, sometimes you can check 3. But for radio button, you can only pick 1. But when you want somebody to pick more than 1, you use CHECKBOX. I think I've explained that at various times. So we're going to put label for accept. Maybe somebody want to accept something. So label accept. So we're going to put input in between. Input type CHECKBOX. So the name is going to be accept. The ID accept. The ID is accepted or accept. Then value, we must give it a value. Values are always pre-coded kind of. This is allow. So the value is going to be yes. So accept. All right. So that is accept. Then from there we'll go to. So we just want to see what happened when you check the button. So just below here, I'm going to bring script. That's the JavaScript value of I want to get this value of checked, because of course when somebody check it, this value must get it and send it to your server. So how do we get that? So we're going to say constant cb equals to document dot query selector into accept. So constant, then button is equal to document dot query selector btn. If it's query selector, we must put the hash, this hash. If it is an id, if it is a class, you put dot. So we'll just say, all we'll do is that btn 10 dot on click. So I've told you that we can use this method. So dot on click, if you click on it, all right, so what should happen? Equals to callback function, right? So alert, when you click it, alert. So cb dot value, cb dot value. So it's going to pick the value, this yes, and echo it. So if I refresh this, if I click submit, see yes, speaking the value. Whether I check or did not check, the value that we entered here, this value. So JavaScript has helped us to pick it out. So if you say this is rice now, the value is going to be rice. Beans, the value is going to be beans. So that's the value you'll be sending to the backend. So that is how to get the value of a checkbox in JavaScript. All right. So that's this with that. So now, what if we have more than one checkbox? Submit. Still the same thing. So what if we have more than one checkbox, for instance? So maybe you want to select your favorite color. P, select your favorite color. So what I'm going to do now, favorite color, right? So let's move to label. So label for maybe color 1. So maybe you want to select favorite color. So let's have input checkbox. So give the first name color, right? Give it ID of color 1, right? Then let's have the value. That's exactly what will be sent to the backend if you are getting the data. So the first one, red. So I think that's all. So red. So let's duplicate this. Okay, so we are changing this one to blue, then this one to green, then color 2, color 3. So when we click submit, we want to get selected colors. All right, so how do we want to get this selected color? So value blue, then green. All right, see everything that the IDs must be different. Color 1, color 2 to color 3. The label also must be different, color 2, color 3, but they are all checkbox. The name is color, the values are different, the IDs are also different, so take that into mind. So let's go to our script now. All right, so I already taught you how to get the value of just one of the input that somebody selected. So now let's just comment this out and get the value for, so constant, I think query selector, we're using the same, we're going to use this btn query selector. So I'm going to say btn, I'm using event listener dot add event listener into, so when I click it, start to event listener, click add event listener, then we're going to have a callback function okay, so let checkbox I want to pick all the checkboxes with checkboxes equals to document dot query selector, or so I want to select all the labels, all these inputs, all the checkpoints. So inputs into name equals to color. So we are selecting all inputs with name equals to color, input with name equals to color, and that are checked. So it must have been the input with name color that is checked. So all of them is what we are picking. So how do we know? So we can just console.log to check, console.log. I think this will not work because when the page is loading, it will, okay, console.log checkboxes. I think when I click on the submit button, it's supposed to show it. So yeah, so select your favorite color. So I'm going to click this. Let me click select. Can you see length 1, only 1, input color 1? That's the one. As you can see here, it's even indicating on the browser. Can you see? That's the selected, because I said the input that is selected, input with color ID that is selected. If I select the second one too and click get selected color, it will become 2. Node list 2, 1 and 2. If I click the third one, select color, it will become 3. As you can see, 1, 2, 3. So this query selector input into name equals to color is picking the checked input with name color. So that's what that is doing for us. So what we want to do next is to create an array, an empty array that will get the value of all the selected checkboxes. So you will need all of this when you start building big applications. There are no two ways about it. Let values equals to this. Okay, values equals to this. Checkboxes dot for each. So that means because it is returning an array, this checkbox is returning an array. So we are using for each to check each value of the array. So for each checkbox, we're going to be using for each so much. All right. So we are saying for each checkbox in checkboxes, for each of these 1, 2, 3. So for each checkbox in checkboxes. So let me console.log checkbox for you. Console.log so that you can note checkbox dot value. So it's going to be the value, this value, right, that I'm going to console.log. So if I click refresh now, if I click red and I click get selected color, can you see red? If I click blue and I click get selected color, so here this is the first one, blue. If I click this get selected color, can you see red, blue, green? So it's getting each of the values of this selected of the selected parameters or selected colors. So let me refresh again. So let me pick blue and green. You will see it's going to give us blue and green. So when I click green, red, and I click it, it's going to give us red and green. So that's how it works, right? So you can use this check.box.value to get what somebody selected and send it to your backend. So we can just easily push that into this value. So this is an empty array. So we want to push the value of each of the each of the color into those values. So we're going to say values dot push. So you must have learned about dot push, how to use dot push on checkboxes. So here now it's going to be checkbox dot value, not values. So we can easily alert. You just see alert. So the selected colors are. So I'm just going to concatenate it with values. So it will now pick the arrays and show it to us. So when I click refresh, I click this get selected color. Can you see the selected colors are red, blue, green? All right. So if I choose only to select red, green. So this way you can select the selected values and send to your backend, and it's as simple as that. That's how it works. All right. So you can actually check or uncheck buttons, but in most cases this is all what you need to do. All right. So I can write a function that can help us check all the boxes. So but we might not necessarily need to do that, but in most cases this is all you need to get the value of a selected button. So and send it to the backend. So we need to go to RADIOBUTTON next. How you interact with RADIOBUTTON. The difference between this one and RADIOBUTTON is that in RADIOBUTTON you can only select one color, but here you can select multiple colors. So let's proceed to RADIOBUTTON. Let's have a div. I just put this inside this way, very in an easy format. So this time we're using RADIOBUTTON to make this a possibility. So you can say paragraph, choose a car for yourself, or choose your gender. Of course, you can have more than one gender. So these are the cases where the only option can only be one. So these are the cases where you use RADIOBUTTON. So let me see label. So label for gender. So let's have input RADIOBUTTON. So name, the name of the RADIOBUTTON is going to be gender. It's going to be the same for I think we're going to also have the value. The ID of this one is going to be, let's say male. All right, so male. So let's also have another label. This time around, it's going to be type radio. The name must be the same, gender, because that is key. So since it is radio, you can only select any of them, any one, if the names are the same. So this one is going to be female. All right. Then this one is going to be female. You know, things are a bit messed up now. So people claim not to be male or female again. They are transgender. They are, I don't know what they are. So we have to consider them and put others. So we can just consider them and put others. So whatever the others may be, we know they don't want to associate. They don't want to be addressed as male or female. So it's going to be the same. All right, so we have to move next. So let's just put a button, and give the name of the button a different ID button, so we can easily know which. You know, we have more than one button on this page, so I can call it BTN1, button 1, show selected gender. So down here, I want this paragraph. I'm going to give the paragraph an ID of output. So I want the selected gender to come up here automatically, you know, using JavaScript to make that happen. So let's see how it looks like. All right, so when I click male, you can see that it is unchecking female. You understand? So you can only choose one. So that's why you use radio button. But for CHECKBOX, you can choose more than one. So we can also write a JavaScript function that will not allow you to choose more than 2 or 3. So when we say you can only select 2 favorite colors. So the moment you click first and second, this one will not click again. But of course, when you start building other applications, watch other tutorials, you will be seeing how most of these things work. So here, I want what I'm clicking to show. The moment I click it and I select show selected gender, I want it to show here. So let's go to our JavaScript and constant btn1, because we are using button 1 this time around, equals to, so document.query selector 1. All right, so constant radio buttons equals to document dot query selector. So we're going to use or the same way inputs into. So this time around, the input with name equals to gender. Right, so that is what we are going to select all the radio buttons that has that. So btn1, that's the second button. Add the event listener. The event listener we want to use is click. When you click it, so we're going to have this. That's cover function. We're going to have this cover function. Let's selected. I just selected gender. So I just declared the variable. I didn't pass any value to it. So you can declare a variable like this, let selected gender, without equating it to any value. Right? So we're going to say for, so this is like for constant radio button that is selected, that is radio buttons. Okay, radio button of radio buttons. So it's just like for each, this like checkbox dot for each, you understand? So it's the same thing for constant. We are declaring the constant radio button a new variable of radio buttons. Okay, so which of the one that is checked? So we now check if into radio button checked. If the radio button that is checked, so we can use this checked method to know if it is checked. If it is checked, then we can easily say selected gender equals to radio button dot value. So the selected gender, so the value of the radio button, we are now passing it to this selected gender that we already created. All right, okay, so then we'll break it. So we'll now come to, that's put an end to it. So we'll now come to so after this this select button, we also need to select the output where we want to show the selected gender. So the ID is output. Here, this is it. ID output. So we are going to use the output dot inner text. We've talked about how to use that before. So we're going to say inner. Okay, so I think I taught you this instead of for me to use if selected size, I don't know, if selected gender, so that means if a gender has been selected, I can say that output dot inner text is not inner HTML, inner text, because we are not creating an HTML. Inner text output dot inner text equals to you selected this. I don't know whether I've used this before. This sign is on your tab. I keep forgetting the name, but it's on your tab. Then here I want to show the selected gender that is selected. So I'm going to say selected gender. Look at the difference. If I change this to this, it will not work. Can you see? It's not going to work. So because I want to add okay, there are two ways I can do it to make this work. So I can do it like this. I can concatenate it this way plus, you understand, just like this. Exactly. So you selected this S. So that means if nothing is selected when somebody click on the submit button, so we will now say please select a gender, or we can say output dot inner text equals to please select your gender. So this O if and else, this O conditional statement, I can put it in one line. All right, I'm going to come back to do it. This is the second time I'm going to be putting it in one line, but I want to write it first before I put it in one line so that you can understand. So I'm going to come back here and refresh. So let me click female, show gender, screen. All right, so this has not been working the way I wanted it to work. So I just observed that after I selected this, when this one works, So if I now come back to select this one will seem like it is working. So I figured out what the error is. So this btn, so I'm not supposed to write all of this inside here. I was supposed to close this particular event listener here. So you're supposed to close here rather than putting all of this code inside. I hope you didn't make the same mistake, because this is a new section of code outrightly, and this btn, as you can see from my code arrangement, the way it is being arranged is showing that all of these are inside this curly bracket, and it's not supposed to be so. It's not supposed to be so. So I'm removing the last one here and I'm closing it here. So that's an error. All right, so I've closed this now here. So then this is new outrightly. This is for this btn and this closes here. So that's why we are having that initial error. So if I click female now, let's see. So you selected. So if I refresh and I did not select anything and I click show selected gender, it said please select your gender. So if I click female, show selected gender, so you selected on. So I need to figure it out. It's supposed to show you selected female, not you selected on. So let me figure out what that error is. So I think I found what the problem is. So here we didn't give the value. We wanted to get the value the value here, radio button dot value. So that's what we wanted to get, and here just like we have value here, we didn't put value here. So this one is going to be equals to male. That's just the error, and I've spent like 30 minutes trying to look for what the error is. So that's what programming is. Sometimes you have to learn how to make mistakes by making mistakes. So others. So let's see if this is going to work now. So if I select others, here it's showing male, but here you selected others. Click, you see you selected female, you selected male. So it's working perfectly now. So others, female, male, got. So good, that's working. So I've been trying to troubleshoot why it was not working initially. Of course, initially it was showing on. You selected on. So if I didn't select anything, for instance, let's check the last one. Please select your gender, because I did not select anything and I show selected gender. So I also explained to you that I can rewrite this whole line of code using just one line. All right, so I can easily write it like this, because we're going to see it a lot. So I'm going to say output dot inner test equals to if selected gender. That means if a gender is selected, what would happen? Output this. So the value of output will be this. If selected gender, that means if it is true, S is going to be this. So that's another way to write selected if statement. So sorry, this is supposed to be question mark. Why this is supposed to be hyphen? So is this one line of code will do what this 4 line of code is doing. So if I refresh now and I click show select, it's working. Please select your gender. So if I click female, it will change it to you selected female. If I click male, you selected male. Good. So this way we've come to the end of the basics of JavaScript. So virtually everything what I told you, what I taught you here, is what we are going to continually use. Optional statements, if or else statements, for loop, etc. Those are the things you're going to be using as you proceed in your development journey. So thank you for subscribing to this channel and for coming to keep watching. And I will appreciate if you can recommend this channel for people who want to learn programming, that want to learn it in a way they will understand. All right, the way I'm teaching you this JavaScript now, I'm not teaching you like somebody who knows. I'm teaching you like somebody who does not know. So if you also want other people to benefit, please share the YouTube link with others. Tag me on Twitter if you're sharing on Twitter. You can also share on your Facebook page. Please help me share kindly help me share the YouTube channel to others who want to learn. Then some people came to my DM to also try to ask for my account details to send me some money, appreciating me for what I'm doing. So I really appreciate all of you, and God will bless you all. So this is just the beginning. So we've completed JavaScript now. So subsequent videos, we'll be building small JavaScript projects. We're going to be like 4 or 5 JavaScript projects. I mean, JavaScript applications, small JavaScript applications like Countdown, like JavaScript calculator. We've done form validation. Okay, I mean, we might not need to do that. We can do word counter, how many words is in a sentence, so we can do that. So those are the things that we're going to be doing. So we just do 1 or 2 so that we can deepen our knowledge of JavaScript and the likes. So thank you. Please let me show me your progress on Twitter. Just screenshot what you are doing. If you have issues, send me a DM on Twitter. Then I'm going to be able to respond to resolve your issues. Thank you.